it spread through the Hart house that this kid who got stretched by Stu actually wants to come back and continue.
Right. So I proceeded to go back, and I'd go out there probably 3 or 4 times a week and get training, and then started to train with Smith and Keith, two of the Hart boys, plus Stu. And then there was always other wrestlers, some that were already wrestling, and there's always people trying to break in. So just at the same time that I was breaking in, a fellow called Wayne Coleman, who most people wouldn't recognize the name, but he became a wrestler. His name is Superstar Billy Graham. He was breaking into Stu's dungeon at that point, and he was just a huge guy, and you know, all the natural things going for him as a wrestler compared to myself, who was more of an average sized guy. But this guy was gigantic, bodybuilder, and very much a guy that could make wrestling. You just look at this guy, you know he could be a superstar, literally. And he turned out to be. But it was impressive. I'd go and watch him, and this is a long time ago. He'd go in the gym and warm up with 300 pound, 400 pound, 450 pound bench presses to warm up before he started working out. And it was just incredible to watch this guy. But he was a guy that started basically at the same time that achieved the things I was looking for that I never accomplished. So there was always a different bunch of people, and close to the same time, a young guy called Greg Valentine, who's later known as the Hammer, Greg the Hammer Valentine. His dad had been a wrestler, and now he was training, so he was about my age, and they'd send him up from Oregon up to Stu's to get trained. So Greg Valentine and I worked in the gym, in the dungeon together, working on moves and wrestling ability and all the things that pertain to it. So eventually, probably after 2 years of being at the dungeon, and Stu still kept, once in a while say, you're just too nice, maybe I should adopt you, and then I could get rid of one of my kids. And I don't think that sat well with the boys, but anyway, that's what he told me, so could have been a story. But he gave me my first match, actual match, at that point. I had never stepped inside a wrestling ring up to that point. It was always in the dungeon. And he said, Bob, I've got you booked for a match in Red Deer, in my hometown, and it's going to be with Greg Valentine. So my first actual professional match was in my hometown in the Red Deer Arena versus Greg Valentine. And at that point, Angelo Mosca just was in the business then. After a very successful football career, he'd switched to wrestling and did very, very well for himself later in the wrestling. But he was on the cards at that time. And I remember being very impressed with him, how big he was at the time. Actually, there were some really big guys in the business at that time. So my first match with Greg Valentine went to a draw, or what they call a Broadway, in the wrestling business in Red Deer. And I didn't know, I was not smart enough at that point. They sent me out and said, okay, your opponent is Greg Valentine, away you go. And I got out there, and we're kind of looking at each other because we'd worked together in the gym, and they hadn't told him anything, and they hadn't told me anything, so away we went, and ended up in a 10-minute draw, or Broadway, on my first match, and I was just elated that I didn't get beat. So it was a very inauspicious start to my career, but once I had that first match in front of live people with a real opponent in a real ring, that I knew then that was what I wanted to do for sure. There wasn't any doubt, and I knew that all the hassle and the pain and the heartache I'd gone through to get to that point, I felt would be worth it. It was kind of like the door opened and I went through.
Fantastic.